TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis from the Ultra-Orthodox communities demonstrated in Jerusalem today against a bill that aims to establish military draft quotas within their communities in what may turn into a government crisis. Qatar acknowledges that the Islamist Hamas has violated the ceasefire. U.S. President Donald Trump asserts that the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip continues to hold. Hundreds of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Israelis gathered at the entrance of Jerusalem early this afternoon for what was formerly being described as a prayer vigil in support of Torah study. However, the implicit purpose of the rally is to conduct a show of force amidst a heated political and legal battle over proposed wording of a military draft bill for the ultra-Orthodox community that was published this week and sparked a wave of sharp criticism, including from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's own party, since the bill includes a number of problematic clauses that fail to meet conscription targets that the IDF had repeatedly warned about were far below national security requirements. While the IDF requires approximately 12,000 conscripts from the ultra-Orthodox communities to fill a gap that would dramatically lower the number of days reserve forces would require to assume, the proposed bill offers a far lower conscription target of merely 4,800 people. Moreover, the bill grants ultra-Orthodox men an exemption until the age of 26, when most of them are already married with children, which also grants a full exemption from military service. In addition, the bill would oblige ultra-Orthodox men to serve 2 years in contrast to 3 that their fellow non-religious citizens are obliged to serve in, and sanctions for evading service, which are immediately applied on all sectors of Israeli society, would only take effect after 2 years of evasion. Now, it is important to explain that both from a professional military perspective, the proposed bill does not meet the data-driven requirements to face Israel's numerous threats, while from an emotional perspective, the vast majority of Israelis who do not account themselves as part of the ultra-Orthodox streams of Judaism are outraged by the lack of burden sharing, particularly following the heinous crimes that were committed by the Islamist Hamas against Israelis on October 7th of 2023, and the heavy civic burden that arose particularly on men and women that serve in the reserves duty due to the multi-front war that followed versus the Islamic Republic of Iran and its regional proxies. Nevertheless, ultra-Orthodox factions are defiantly pushing back against any attempt to increase the burden sharing, adamant to maintain their special status within Israeli society, going as far as to threaten that unless their wishes are accommodated, their political parties, which are senior partners in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition, would bring about an abrupt end to the incumbent government and force the country into a new round of elections. Now, turning to the U.S.-led Civil Military Coordination Center, or CMCC, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu toured the facility, together with U.S. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper and IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir.
I am pleased to host our American friends here in Kiryat Gat. They are working together with us on a plan to achieve a different Gaza, a Gaza that will no longer pose a threat to Israel. The first component, of course, is security and the security responsibility for maintaining our forces and our freedom of action. This is an accepted matter, and we are doing it. It is important. It is a fundamental component. In the same measure, we want to bring it about that in the end, the goal that President Trump and we agreed on, the disarming of Hamas and the demilitarization of Gaza, will be achieved. We are working on this in stages, together with other components of the plan. I believe that through cooperation, we have already done things that have astounded the world, both in Iran and in the release of our live hostages, in which no one believed we would succeed. There is a real joint effort here, while keeping security in our hands, to achieve results that perhaps no one believed we would achieve. We want to try. President Trump said it simply: either we achieve this the easy way, as we hope, or we will have to achieve it the hard way, but we will achieve what we are looking to achieve.
While the Islamist Hamas continues to deliberately frustrate the timely return of all remaining hostages who were murdered in Hamas captivity, to include 2 American citizens among other dual nationals, the Palestinian terror group also continues to violate the ceasefire agreement, including by the targeting of Palestinian civilians and rivals throughout the Gaza Strip, which objectively indicates its efforts to maintain its power. Moreover, Hamas terror operatives frequently launch attacks against IDF troops and cause friction along the Yellow Line, which is under the IDF ceasefire-mandated control. Meanwhile, at a time when Turkish officials hold press conferences, essentially blaming Israel's retaliatory strikes against Hamas as violating the ceasefire, Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, during a Q&A session at the Council of Foreign Relations in New York, acknowledged that Hamas was responsible for violating the ceasefire.
What happened yesterday was a violation, and what we were expecting that this violation also will be there will be a response for it. But fortunately, I think the main parties both of them are acknowledging that the ceasefire should hold and they should stick to the agreement.
You're using the word violation. Can you tell us who do you believe violated the ceasefire?
Well, look, if we will start to describe the violations, it will be an open-ended questions. But what happened yesterday, the attack on the Israeli soldiers, that's basically a violation by the Palestinian Party. Now, Hamas has put a statement that they are not in communication with this group. We don't know yet. We didn't have any verification if this is true or not. We remained focused on making sure that the ceasefire itself holds.
It is worth pointing out that the IDF soldier who was killed by the Islamist Hamas earlier this week, namely 37-year-old and father of 5, Master Sergeant Effie Feldbaum, was a dual American-Israeli national. And while Hamas was in clear breach of the ceasefire, aboard Air Force One en route back from the Pacific to the United States, President Donald Trump reiterated that the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip continues to hold.
Israel give you a heads up before they bombed Gaza? And is it still a ceasefire if they're stopping?
It is. No, they had a sniper and one of their soldiers were killed and they did retribution. So we'll see. But it is a ceasefire. It's back to ceasefire.
Returning to the Council on Foreign Relations in New York, where Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani acknowledged that Hamas is pushing back against its own disarmament. In contrast, however, Prime Minister Al Thani insisted that Hamas was willing to relinquish its authority to the new technocratic governance body that will be erected and rule Gaza.
I don't see that the governance will be a challenge because this is something that we've been very clear with Hamas, and Hamas' response was very clear to us that they are willing to give up the governance. The weapon question, from their perspective, this is an obligation on all the factions, not on Hamas only. And basically, we are trying to push them all in order to get to a point where they acknowledge that they need to disarm and they need to move on to the next stage. And we need to make sure that the Palestinians are safe and the Israelis are safe. That's That's, I think, that's the whole purpose of the decommissioning and disarmament, and creating a political horizon for the Palestinian people, and creating the Palestinian agency that will be able to be the sole holder of arms.
Meanwhile, many countries are joining the American-led Civil Military Coordination Center, or CMCC, aimed at enforcing the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. However, some countries who've been hostile towards Israel over the course of the past several years are finding themselves out of the loop, such as Turkey, for instance, and other countries such as France have gained far limited roles than what they initially expected.
Our priority is to integrate ourselves into the framework established by the Americans to stabilize the enclave. This includes the Civil and Military Coordination Center. In order to influence its direction, officers are already embedded within the structure, supported by our diplomats in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. A larger interministerial team will be deployed there shortly. And in parallel, we are discussing the mandate of the future International Stabilization Force with the Americans and urging the Palestinians to quickly form the committee responsible for governing Gaza.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to once again thank you for your support of TV7 Israel, since your donation is helping us produce our daily news from here in Jerusalem. If you haven't yet supported TV7 Israel, please consider doing so. You can donate via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Separately, and as ever, please pray for our brothers and sisters facing persecution globally, along with prayers for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Jonathan Essen wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.